So, welcome to the Sepang International Circuits, and they are live pictures, unfortunately, around about 5 to 10 minutes after the MotoGP Tissot Sprint concluded. The rain, unfortunately, arrived just as I was walking over to the main grandstand to the commentary position. So I've got a bit wet, and unfortunately the riders on track are also getting a bit wet, as are some of the spectators who have hung around to watch race one of the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup here in Malaysia. A second time visiting Malaysia this year. 33 degrees air temperature, 38 degree track temperature, and as you can see from the graphic and the pictures, it is raining. It's held up slightly. It was raining pretty heavy about 5 minutes ago. It's just leveled off a little bit, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. My name is Elliot York, and alongside me in the commentary box once again is my good pal Chris Jordan. Chris, a bit of a spanner in the works, as I said. Unfortunately, it would have been good to have a dry race. The qualifying times and practice times were very close, and we were excited for a couple of races. It should be a good race anyway once we get underway. Just confirmation that the body screens are wet. Start procedure, pit lane open for 7 minutes. So you're going to see the riders who have all headed out on track to get some wet track time. They'll come back into pit lane a couple of times. It's a long lap here at the Putra Sepang International Circuit. So they'll come in for a couple of laps just to get some feel for the circuit, feel for the conditions. As I said, the first time this weekend it has been wet. So pit lane open for 7 minutes, then it'll shut, then they'll make their way around to the grid, and then hopefully we will be underway for race one. But Chris, welcome to Sepang, mate. I'm looking forward to these two races, and what a prospects we've got in our hands. Veda Pratama in contention to claim the title this weekend.
Yeah, fantastic to be alongside you once again here for the ATC. And I'm very sorry to hear you got wet, but you know, as they say, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes, Elliot. So I think you should be prepared better next time. But indeed, we do have the first wet start procedure here. So this is going to be a crucial 7 minutes for these riders. First wet session of the weekend, and there hasn't been a lot of wet riding in this championship so far this year, so keep an eye on this one. Pratama, you would imagine, is the favourite, but how much of a spanner in the works will this wet weather be?
It'll be a big one, unfortunately. As you can see, it is very, very wet out there. The riders all taking it nice and steady. Takahira, incidentally, will start on pole position, Riichi Takahira. And good news is he's made it further around than he did last time. It was similar conditions back in Japan, if you remember back then. Takahira unfortunately crashed on the sighting lap and then crashed a couple of laps into the race, and that unfortunately led to a DNF for Takahira. But getting live pictures of the riders tackling the Sepang International Circuit, 5.5 kilometre long, 3.4 mile long circuit. It's got a bit of everything, but as you can see there, very, very tricky conditions indeed. The rain super intense at the top end of the circuit. They're just rounding turn 4, and then they'll come over the breast of the hill, the brow of the hill I should say, round turn 5. It looks very, very wet up there. What I will say is, Chris, looking outside of the commentary box window, both to the front and to the rear, it looks like we're just sort of in the middle of a heavy rain shower. To the right-hand side of the circuit, it looks pretty clear. To the far end of the circuit, it looks pretty clear. To the left and to the rear, it looks pretty clear. But unfortunately, we dodged it yesterday. We got pretty lucky yesterday. Some of the team's weather radars were saying that we dodged it by a couple of miles. We were literally in a circle that didn't have rain. Unfortunately, not so lucky today. But we'll see what happens from here. But yeah, look at that. You can see how wet it is out there for these riders. And as we say, this is the first time they've had wet weather here this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely bucketing down. You can see the riders having the utmost caution. They're creeping around here at Putra Sepang International Circuit, and we're going to see how quick they can go in this race. But yeah, I imagine they're going to try and get a few laps in here and just assess where the best places are, where they can push that a little bit more coming around the circuit here. But it looked particularly heavy around turns 3, 4 and 5, but ride up a little bit as they come towards the end of the circuit a bit more. It's not as heavy here as we're looking on our screens. So yeah, very, very crucial few minutes here for them to adjust to what's in front of them on the circuit.
Yeah, exactly that. Let's run through the Pratama title chance, as we can call it. as I said, he's got a 74-point lead coming into this one. With 4 races remaining, that means there's 75 points still on offer. So essentially, after this race, Pratama needs to be 75 points or more clear of his closest rivals. His closest at the minute being Phuettisan, Mitani and Odaki in 3rd and 4th places respectively at 80 points back. And then Takahira, who, as I mentioned, starts on pole position, is 90 points back. So essentially, if Pratama wins the race, he is the champion. If he beats Phuettisan and doesn't lose 5 points to Mitani, more than 5 points to Mitani, he is champion. Same with Odaki in Mitani's. Okay, so essentially, Phuettisan needs to beat Pratama for Phuettisan to stand any chance of having a mathematical chance of still being champion. It sounds more complicated than it is. I've probably not done a good job of explaining that very well, but essentially, if it doesn't happen today, it's very, very likely to happen in race 2, because at the end of this weekend, there are only 50 points on the table. He's 74 points clear now, so it's very unlikely, I say that hesitantly, of course, anything can happen in motorcycle racing, that Pratama doesn't leave this weekend as the champion, but we will wait and see to find out. Pratama knows what he's got to do. He's been on fire all year. If you've not been watching the Asia Talent Cup all year, do go and watch some of the races back, especially last time out in Buran, Chris. Thai GP never really disappoints across all classes, but what a couple of races we had back there. Some intense battles and some fascinating battles as well.
Yeah, absolute stunner last time out. It was Jakkreephat Phuettisan who took race 1 when I was commentating alongside you, and he did that in fine fashion too, didn't he? For a breakthrough win in front of your home crowd, I'm sure he couldn't have dreamed it any better, doing it at the final corner and nudging his main rival down into 5th place. I also must offer you my thanks for giving the title permutations a go. Mathematics has never been my strong point, so thank you for taking that off of my hands. But as I read it, Pratama just needs to outscore Phuettisan by a point and he'll take the title. Mitani, Odaki and Takahira are all within a mathematical chance, but they are 80, 80 and 90 points back respectively. They'll need nothing short of a miracle really if they are to keep this title fight going into the final round at Qatar.
Yeah, exactly that, Chris. If you are just joining us, this isn't the race. This is live pictures of the riders just making their way round the sighting laps. You see their pit lane open for 7 minutes. I think they'll be coming round to the starting grids this lap. As I mentioned, it's a long lap here. The mechanics are all waiting on the grids. We will bring you information if we're going to get a delayed stop or not. Not had any information through as of yet, so looks like we'll be getting underway fairly sharpish. But yeah, all the riders just making their way around the Sepang International Circuit very nicely indeed, just picking up where the grip is and sussing out the conditions. Mitani on the screen there on the number 2 rider. He knows what he's got to do today to try and stop Pratama from claiming the title in race 1. Up the back straight they go. Slipstream City here at the Sepang International Circuit, out of turn 14. The second gear right-hander to turn 15, the famous final corner here at Sepang, where so many races are won and lost, and it's all about firing it out at the final corner and getting a good launch down the long front straight. There is the number 7 of Veda Pratama. All eyes will be on Pratama this weekend and today. He was the race winner back in Japan when we last had a wet race. A little bit different conditions, I would say, back in Japan. The race started wet and then continued to get drier and drier. It does look like the rain is just holding off on the front straight, at least. Anyway, you can probably hear, I can hear through a headset, so I assume you can hear through your TVs or wherever you're watching from as well. Some of the fans screaming for Veda Pratama. Loads and loads of fans in this part of the world already for Veda Pratama. The Indonesians, of course, love their motorcycle racing, and Veda Pratama, the champion-elect in many ways in 2023, is already gathering some momentum in terms of fans in this part of the world. Riichi Takahira, Chris, starting on pole position. We, of course, came here for round 1 earlier on in the year. He won the opening race of the season, finished a close second, and then unfortunately for Takahira, hasn't finished on the podium since.
Yeah, it really was a breakthrough weekend for him, but as you said, hasn't been on the podium since he picked up a P1, P2 in that opening round in Malaysia. Still mathematically in with a shout of the championship, but 90 points off with 100 left. He will need nothing short of a miracle. Shinya Ezawa then, he was just less than half a tenth of Takahira in qualifying. He was on the front row in Motegi Mandalika. He's back on it here. Still no win in 2023 either for the number 21, but P2s in Japan and Thailand are his best offering of 2023 so far. And completing a Japanese lockout of the front row is Amon Odaki, also within a tenth of the pole sitter in qualifying, and he too is still chasing that first win of the year, though he has come close on a number of occasions.
Yeah, certainly has. Odaki finished on the podium in the last 4 races, finished on the podium back his home race in Japan as well. So Odaki really desperate for that first win of the season. Not many riders have won this year due to Veda Pratama's dominance. Pratama has 6 wins and 7 podiums in total. Of course, Phuettisan, as you mentioned, Chris, back in Thailand, that dream debut victory in the Asia Talent Cup back in race 1 on home soil, and then of course, as we've just mentioned, Takahira winning the opening race of the season. Zen Mitani starts P4. He picked up a couple of podiums, did Mitani, back in September at the round 1 here in Malaysia. Zen Mitani, a rookie, remember, easy to forget, Chris, that Mitani is a rookie. He's been so impressive, and unfortunately suffered that nasty crash out of P2 in the latter stages of race 2 over in Thailand.
Yeah, he's had a phenomenal breakthrough here, hasn't he? He's been consistent podium threat and race winning threat. He had a bit of a misfortune, shall we say, in Thailand race 2 where he high-sided out, but he'll start P4 just ahead of the rider of the moment. That's Veda Pratama, the rider of the moment in the class. 6 wins, including 5 in a row, 1 further podium. He's been nigh on unstoppable. He needs to outscore the man on your screen now, Jakkreephat Phuettisan, by a point to take the title today, and of course outscore some of the other riders who are a bit further back in the championship. He's also bidding to become the first Indonesian to win the competition. So here is your starting grid for race 1. It's Riichi Takahira, Ezawa and Amon Odaki on the front row. Zen Mitani, Veda Pratama and Farish Hafiy, home hero Hafiy, the best placed of the Malaysians. Jakkreephat Phuettisan, Ryota Ogiwara and Marianos Nikolis are on the third row ahead of Farish Putra. Hamad Al-Sahouti, Levi, Kwan, Russo make up row 4. Row 5 then is all Indonesian, Meilandri, Rasyadan and Gading, while row 6 is Darwisy, Singhapong and Putra, while Sarthak Chavan completes the starting grid for race 1 here in Malaysia.
Now we can get ready for highlights of race 1 here in Malaysia. Takahira, the number 9, started from pole position with Shinya Ezawa getting away well, breaking late down into turn 1 and getting the whole shot. Pratama, the championship leader, got away well from P5 on the grids. And at the start of the second lap here, down at turn 1, the number 7 took the lead. However, this then unfolded at turn 6. The right-hander, as Pratama flicked it right, not long since he'd taken the lead, he crashed out of contention. Drama in the title race. This is what happened in the lead group. It was a fascinating battle throughout the race. Takahira on the number 9, Odaki, Mitani on the number 2, Hafiy, the Malaysian, the home hero, on the number 19. And the lead was changing throughout the race. Turn 15, the final corner here at Sepang, saw plenty of overtaking as Hafiy made his way to the front for the first time with a few laps remaining. This is Mitani, unfortunately, crashing out on the exit of turn 2. The Japanese rider was all okay, but that was his race over. And then a lap later, just after being demoted to P2, pretty much the same happened. Unfortunately for Hafiy, he crashed out of second place, and a podium and a potential victory went begging. This was the final corner though, on the final lap. Ezawa led out of turn 14, but Odaki got the slipstream, hung it around the outside and claimed his first win of 2023, and look what it meant. Thanks for joining us for race 1. We will see you tomorrow morning for race 2. See you then.